ancient Iberian ancestors and the genetic rise of hazel eyes. Look closely at your eyes in the mirror. That mix of brown, green, gold. The color that never seems to stay the same. What if that shifting color isn't random at all? What if it's a genetic echo from a small group of people who lived in the mountains of ancient Iberia over 7,000 years ago, people whose choices, migrations, and survival literally changed human eye color forever? This isn't just about hazel eyes. It's about a mutation that spread across Europe, reshaped human genetics, and still stares back at millions of us today. And once you hear this story, you'll never look at your eyes the same way again. Welcome to the untold history of hazel eyes and the ancient Iberians who helped spread this trait across Europe and beyond. Let's rewind the clock. Way back. About 300,000 years ago, when our species, Homo sapiens, first appeared in Africa. Every single human on Earth had brown eyes. Dark brown. Deep, rich, chocolate brown. Why? Because melanin, the pigment that colors our skin, hair, and eyes, protected our ancestors from the intense African sun. Brown eyes contain high amounts of melanin in the iris. This wasn't a fashion choice. It was survival. But here's where it gets interesting. As humans began migrating out of Africa around 70,000 years ago, moving into Europe, Asia, and beyond, something remarkable happened. The environmental pressures changed. The blazing African sun gave way to the cloudier, dimmer skies of northern Europe. And with less intense sunlight, the evolutionary advantage of dark eyes began to fade. Random mutations in genes controlling eye color started to appear and, crucially, they weren't weeded out by natural selection anymore. They survived. They spread. By about 10,000 years ago, as the last ice age ended and Europe began to warm, the continent was home to diverse groups of hunter-gatherers. These people had already begun developing lighter skin tones, an adaptation to lower UV radiation that helped their bodies produce vitamin D in low light conditions. But their eyes? Mostly still brown. Some had developed blue eyes through a mutation in the OCA2 gene. But hazel? That was still waiting in the wings of history. The stage was set for one of the most significant genetic transformations in European history. And ground zero was about to be the Iberian Peninsula, the land we know today as Spain and Portugal. Imagine the Iberian Peninsula around 5000 BCE. This isn't the Spain and Portugal of today, with cities and highways. This is a wild, untamed land of dense forests, river valleys, and coastal plains teeming with game. Living here were the descendants of the original European hunter-gatherers. Dark-haired, mostly brown-eyed people who had survived the Ice Age and mastered their environment. They fished the rivers, hunted deer and boar, and gathered wild plants. But around 7,000 years ago, everything changed. From the east came newcomers. Farmers. These were Neolithic people who had originated in the Fertile Crescent of the Middle East, the birthplace of agriculture. They brought with them seeds of wheat and barley, domesticated sheep and goats, and something else, different genes. This is where the magic happened. When these early farmers met the indigenous hunter-gatherers of Iberia, they didn't just trade goods or share farming techniques. They intermarried. They had children together. And with each generation, their genetic material mixed and recombined in new ways. We know this because of ancient DNA. Scientists have extracted and sequenced DNA from human remains found in Iberian burial sites dating back thousands of years. These genetic time capsules tell us that the Neolithic farmers carried gene variants that, when combined with local hunter-gatherer genes, could produce hazel eyes. Eye color isn't controlled by just one gene, it's a complex trait involving multiple genes. The main players are OCA2 and HERCT, but at least 16 different genes contribute to the final color you see in the mirror. Brown eyes are dominant, meaning you only need one copy of the brown eye variant to have brown eyes. But hazel? Hazel requires a specific combination. Think of it like mixing paint. To get hazel eyes, you need moderate amounts of melanin in the front layer of the iris and different amounts in the back layer. Too much melanin, and you get brown. Too little, and you get blue or green. But just the right amount, distributed in just the right way, creates that shifting, multi-toned hazel color. As farming communities expanded across Iberia over the next 1,000 years, this genetic mixing continued. Children inherited different combinations of genes from their parents. Some had brown eyes like the majority. Some had the rare blue eyes. And some, for the first time in significant numbers, had hazel eyes. By about 4000 BCE, the Iberian Peninsula had become one of the most genetically diverse regions in Europe. It was a crossroads of peoples and, consequently, a hotbed of genetic variation. And hazel eyes, while still uncommon, were becoming part of the Iberian genetic landscape. But the story doesn't end in Iberia. In fact, it's just beginning. Around 3000 BCE, another massive migration swept across Europe. This time, it came from the steppes of Eastern Europe and Central Asia. These were the Yamnaya people, semi-nomadic herders who had mastered horse riding and wagon building. The Yamnaya expansion was one of the most significant population movements in human prehistory. They spread westward across Europe, bringing their language, which would eventually evolve into most modern European languages, their culture, and their genes. Here's the fascinating part: when the Yamnaya people reached Iberia and other Western European regions, they too intermarried with the local populations. And remember, those local populations already carried the genetic variants for hazel eyes from the earlier farmer and hunter-gatherer mixing. Each wave of migration, each mixing of peoples, was like shuffling a deck of genetic cards. New combinations appeared. Some combinations produced hazel eyes. And because there was no evolutionary disadvantage to hazel eyes in the European environment, people with hazel eyes survived, had children, and passed on their genes. By the Iron Age, around 800 BCE, we see strong evidence of hazel eyes among the Celtic peoples who dominated much of Western and Central Europe. The Celts, who had descended from these mixed populations, spread across what is now France, Britain, Ireland, and parts of Central Europe. Roman writers noted the diverse eye colors of the people they encountered in their conquests. They described Gauls and Iberians with eyes that were neither fully brown nor blue, what we would today call hazel or green. The genetic legacy of those ancient Iberians traveled far. When Celts from Iberia migrated to the British Isles, they carried their genes with them. When Romans conquered and settled in provinces across their empire, genetic mixing continued. When Germanic tribes moved during the fall of Rome, the shuffle continued. Today, hazel eyes are found throughout Europe and in populations of European descent worldwide. They're most common in people of Spanish, Portuguese, British, French, and Italian ancestry. The highest concentrations are found in exactly the regions where that ancient genetic mixing was most intense. Only about 5 to 8% of the world's population has hazel eyes, making them relatively rare compared to brown, which accounts for about 79% globally, or blue, around 8 to 10%, but in certain European populations, the percentage is much higher, sometimes reaching 15 to 20%. So what exactly makes hazel eyes so unique? Why do they seem to change color depending on the lighting, clothing, or even mood? The answer lies in the structure of the iris itself. The iris is the colored part of your eye, and it has two layers, the front layer, called the stroma, and the back layer, which contains pigmented cells. In brown eyes, both layers contain high amounts of melanin. The eye appears brown because melanin absorbs most wavelengths of light. In blue eyes, there's very little melanin in the front layer, so light scatters as it passes through, and we see blue, similar to why the sky appears blue. But hazel eyes? They're right in the middle. They have a moderate amount of melanin in the front layer, but it's distributed unevenly. There might be more melanin toward the center of the iris, creating a brown or gold ring around the pupil, and less toward the edges, creating a green or gray outer ring. This uneven distribution of melanin, combined with a phenomenon called Rayleigh scattering, the same thing that makes the sky blue, creates that characteristic multi-toned appearance. And because the pupil dilates and contracts depending on light conditions, the proportions of brown and green that are visible change, making the eye appear to shift color. At the genetic level, hazel eyes result from specific variations in multiple genes. The OCA2 gene, located on chromosome 15, is a major player. Variations in this gene affect how much melanin is produced. But so do variations in HERCT, which regulates OCA2, and genes like SLC24A4, TYR, and IR4. If both your parents have brown eyes, you can still have hazel eyes if they both carry recessive variants. If one parent has hazel and the other brown, your chances increase. The inheritance pattern is complex because so many genes are involved, which is why siblings can have completely different eye colors. Hazel eyes are sometimes confused with green eyes, but they're distinct. Green eyes have less melanin overall and appear more uniformly green, while hazel eyes have that characteristic brown or gold component, especially near the pupil. This genetic diversity, this beautiful complexity, is a direct result of thousands of years of human migration, mixing, and evolution, all starting in those ancient communities of Iberia. So if you have hazel eyes, or if someone you love does, what does this mean? It means you carry in your very cells a record of human history. Your hazel eyes are a living link to those ancient Iberian farmers and hunter-gatherers who met and mixed 7,000 years ago. They're evidence of the Yamnaya migrations from the steppes. They're a testament to the Celtic expansions, Roman conquests, and countless generations of humans who loved, lived, and passed on their genes. Every time you look in the mirror, you're seeing the result of thousands of years of genetic shuffling, of mutations that were neither good nor bad, just different, and survived because the environment allowed it. Modern genetic testing can now trace these ancestral connections with remarkable precision. Many people who take DNA ancestry tests and have hazel eyes find significant Iberian, Celtic, or broader Western European ancestry in their results. The correlation is strong and scientifically well documented. But beyond the science, there's something profound here. The story of hazel eyes is the story of humanity itself. We are all descendants of migrants. We are all the product of mixing populations and genetic exchange. There are no pure bloodlines, only the beautiful, messy, complex reality of human diversity. Whether your eyes are brown, blue, green, hazel, or any shade in between, they tell a story. They're evidence of an incredible journey that began in Africa hundreds of thousands of years ago and continues today, every time a child is born with a unique combination of their parents' genes. The next time someone compliments your hazel eyes, or you notice them changing color in different light, remember, you're not just looking at a random trait. You're looking at history. You're looking at the legacy of ancient Iberians who farmed the first fields in Western Europe, of hunter-gatherers who survived the Ice Age, of countless ancestors who contributed their genetic legacy to you. If you found this journey through genetics and history fascinating, please subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. We explore the hidden stories in our DNA, the untold histories of human migration, and the science that connects us all. Leave a comment below. What color are your eyes? Have you ever wondered about the ancestry behind them? Let's discuss in the comments. And check out our other videos on the genetics of blue eyes, the origins of red hair, and the surprising history of lactose tolerance. Each trait tells a story of human evolution and migration. Thank you for watching. Until next time, keep looking deeper into the mirror of history written in your DNA.